International Bank of Settlements hakkındaki düşünceleriniz nedir? J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley gerçekten dünyanın devi midir? Arkasındaki güç kim ve ne istiyorlar? Bankaların pozisyonu ne dünyadaki savaşlarda?
Wow. All of the investment groups and banks that you mentioned are very, very powerful, and what they want is to control the world, nothing less. And they've been working to do that for a long time, and they work very closely with the big oil companies, the big chemical companies, all the other big corporations, what I call the corporatocracy, to create a global empire, and they've been pretty successful. So for the first time in history, we really have a truly global empire. It's not an American empire, it's not a national empire, it's a corporate empire. These big corporations are controlling the planet, are trying to, and there's increasing resistance going on. So they haven't quite succeeded. No empire has ever totally succeeded. There's always resistance, and usually the empires collapse. So I think we can expect that this one probably will too. But this is their intent. And the big banks, the big investment houses are, in a way, the catalyst, the guiding power behind this move. Other corporations are also very much involved. Big agribusiness, the big oil companies, the big chemical companies, some of the big merchandising and retail companies. But the driving force always is money. And so the big investment houses and banks have a tremendous amount of power here. And truly, their goal is nothing less than creating an empire. And I was part of that as an economic hitman, the idea being that we could now, for the first time in history, create an empire without using the military for the most part. So in the past, empires were always created through military power, and they were always justified by some lofty ideal. Spreading Islam, spreading Christianity, spreading civilization, whatever. There was always this lofty ideal, but this new empire, and so these old empires sent their armies out to conquer other people, to spread the good things, the religion, the ideals, whatever, Catholicism, But in recent times, the ideal has been what we call democracy and capitalism, which are just watchwords. The real truth is to spread the power of a very few people who run these big corporations. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago, the news came out, it was very highly recorded in the United States, I don't know about Turkey, but that 85 individuals own more assets than half the world's population. So that's been the goal, and they've achieved it to a very large degree. It's a feudal system. It's like the old castles, where the lord sat in the castle and he had a few knights, and below him were all the serfs, the bourgeoisie, the bourge people, the people who lived in the bourges. And suddenly the lord of the castle told these people who've lived on this land and farmed the land and made things from the land for years, they were suddenly told, you don't own the land. The Lord owns the land, and he'll let you use it, but you've got to give 80% of all your produce to the Lord. If you don't, his knights will come in and kill you, or they won't protect you from the knights from the other castles who will attack you. We're experiencing that same system today. But today the castle is the world, and there's a few people who are sitting on top, and they're saying, hey, we'll take care of you. We're the Lord. You're all bourgeoisie, but pay us taxes, work for us for very little pay, give us your resources, and if you do that, we'll protect you. From who? Basically protect you from us. And I think the world is beginning to wake up to this now. The banks that you mentioned are sitting at the top of the castle. And, we're beginning to wake up, and we're beginning to chip away at the castle. That's what...
Türkiye'ye gelen ekonomik tetikçi tanıyor musunuz?
No. I never worked in Turkey personally. I worked in Iran, I worked in Kuwait, I worked in Saudi Arabia, I worked in countries around here, but I never worked in Turkey itself. And so I have no personal experience. I have no doubt that there were a lot of economic hitmen here, and still are. And jackals too, probably, but I personally cannot speak to that because I don't have any personal experience in this country. My only experience in this country has been very pleasant. As a speaker and as a guest and as a tourist and as somebody who comes to conferences, but I have not ever worked here as an economic hitman.
Kemal Derviş adı size neyi çağrıştırıyor?
I'm not sure who that is.
Ankara, Arap sermayesinin akışını Londra'dan Türkiye'ye çevirebilir mi?
Difficult. I think you can siphon some of the money off and have it go to Ankara, but let's face it, I mean, the British have such a long history in the United States and Europe here that it's certainly a tug of war, and you know how much of that capital can Ankara get, I really don't know. But I will say this, I think it's well worth trying. I think the balance of power needs to switch. One of the great things 2.5 years ago when I was first here in Turkey that I kept hearing from other people from the Middle East is that Turkey was a model. Turkey was serving as a model for so much of the Middle East. I think that's been hurt recently by the scandals that have occurred here in the current administration. The corruption and the demonstrations have in a way upset that balance, at least temporarily. But I do believe that Turkey is in a position where it can take on much more of the power, but you have to straighten out your internal affairs first. Somehow, Turkey has to come to grips with this imbalance right now that's going on, this apparent war between the government and certain corporations, between different factions within Turkey. If Turkey can stabilize its politics more, then I think Turkey's in an amazing position to be a leader in the Middle East. And personally, I'd really like to see that happen. It's been way too long that London and other parts of Europe and the United States have had way too great of an interest here in the Middle East and too much power. The power needs to switch to the Middle East, and I think Turkey would make a wonderful place for that to happen. I think Turkey's in a magnificent position. You have an amazingly strong economic base over the years. You have a great reputation. You have extremely hard-working people. You have a reputation for that. Extremely talented people, extremely well-educated people here. You're the bridge between Europe and Asia. I mean, quite literally, the geographic location, the strategic location that you're in. Everything comes together to indicate that Turkey needs to be and can be and should be a great leader in this area as it was in the past, as it has been, as it's had this history. But in order for that to happen, Turkey's going to have to straighten out its own internal affairs.